The council chamber stretched wide and tall, filled with beings from 200 worlds. Some floated in anti-gravity fields. Others sat on platforms designed for their unique bodies. A few existed as energy patterns contained in crystal spheres. They were the most powerful species in the galaxy, and they knew it. Ambassador David Chen stood in the speaking pit below them all. His dark suit looked plain compared to the glowing robes and shimmering scales around him. He was human, and humans always looked plain here. "The Council has reviewed Earth's petition," announced Councillor Vexthar, his 3 heads speaking in perfect harmony. "Your request for a voting seat is denied. This marks the 12th consecutive cycle of denial." Chen showed no emotion. He had expected this. Every human ambassador before him had stood in this same spot, heard these same words, "May I ask the reason?" Chen kept his voice level and polite. "Your species performs essential services across our territories," Vexthar explained, sounding almost bored. "Maintenance, repairs, medical support, resource extraction, waste management. These functions are vital. We cannot risk disrupting them by burdening your people with governance responsibilities." Translation: "We need you to keep fixing our toilets," Chen thought. "Can't have you wasting time on politics." One of the crystal spheres pulsed with light. The translator rendered it as a feminine voice. "Humans are dependable workers. You should be proud of your role in galactic society." Chen recognized the tone. It was the same voice people used when praising a loyal dog. Around the chamber, other council members nodded or made equivalent gestures. The matter was settled. It had always been settled. "I understand," Chen said simply. "We will be in touch." He turned and walked out. No arguments. No protest. No passionate speech about human dignity or rights. Just those 5 words, "We will be in touch." Behind him, the council moved on to other business. None of them noticed the strange calmness in Chen's voice. None of them thought to wonder why he hadn't fought back. 80 years earlier, humanity had joined the galactic community with hope and excitement. Earth had finally developed faster than light travel, and suddenly the universe was open to them. Billions watched as the first human ships approached council stations. "Welcome," the great species had said. "We have much work for you." And there was work. So much work. The council species had built an empire spanning thousands of systems. They had technology that seemed like magic. They had powers humans could barely understand. Some could move objects with their minds. Others existed in multiple dimensions at once. A few were so advanced they had transcended physical bodies entirely. But they had a problem. All this power and advancement came with a price. The great species had evolved beyond manual labor. They viewed physical work as beneath them. Their young were educated in philosophy, quantum mechanics, and dimensional theory. None of them wanted to crawl through maintenance tunnels or clean waste recyclers. That's where humans came in. Humanity had no special powers. They couldn't read minds or bend space. They were just ordinary beings with ordinary hands and ordinary tools. But they were willing to work. At first, it seemed like a fair deal. Humans would do the maintenance and support jobs, and in return, they'd have access to galactic technology and trade. They could live and work throughout the council territories. It was a chance to be part of something bigger. So humans spread across the galaxy. They became the mechanics who kept the great space stations running. They were the nurses who cared for species recovering from illness. They worked in the mines, extracting rare elements from asteroid fields. They managed the complex logistics networks that kept food and supplies flowing between worlds. They became invisible. Essential, but invisible. A Drixari warrior would stride past a human technician without seeing them. A Kelthran philosopher would debate the nature of existence while human cleaners worked around them. The council members in their grand chambers never thought about who maintained their air systems or who ensured their food was safe to eat. The pay was poor. Standard rates for manual labor species, the contract said. Humans complained sometimes, but what choice did they have? Earth was just one planet. The council was the galaxy. And humans were good at the work, surprisingly good. They had a talent for understanding complex systems and making them work better. They could improvise solutions when things broke down. They adapted to new challenges. On Station Kep 7, human engineers discovered that the Zenthri who designed the power system had made a critical error. Instead of reporting it and waiting for Zenthri experts to arrive in 6 months, the humans quietly fixed it. They patched the flaw and moved on to the next job. On the mining colony of Brester 4, humans realized the extraction equipment was slowly poisoning the groundwater. The Hepteron overseers didn't notice. They didn't drink water. The humans redesigned the whole operation in their spare time, preventing an environmental disaster. In hospitals across Council space, human nurses learned to care for hundreds of alien species. They memorized which medicines worked for which biology. They figured out how to comfort dying beings whose emotions they could barely understand. Every day in 1,000 different places, humans solved problems. They kept systems running that should have failed. They made the impossible work through sheer determination and creativity, and nobody noticed. Or if they did, they assumed it was easy. After all, humans were the manual labor species. This was what they did. Chen returned to the human embassy and immediately sent a coded message to Earth. It bounced through secure relays, untraceable and unbreakable. Within an hour, it had reached Geneva, the seat of Earth's unified government. The message was brief. Denied again. Initiate protocol exodus. The response came back even faster. Confirmed. Authorization granted. Chen sat alone in his office looking at Earth through the window. The blue planet hung in space, small and insignificant compared to the great Council worlds. But Chen knew something the Council didn't. Earth wasn't alone anymore. Over 80 years, humanity had built a network across the galaxy. Not a network of weapons or warships, a network of workers. Millions of humans in tens of thousands of locations, all of them performing jobs the Council considered too simple to matter. Chen opened a second communication channel. This one reached every human supervisor, every team leader, every coordinator across Council space. The message was already written, prepared years ago just in case this day came. He read it one final time before sending. To all human workers in Council territories, you are hereby authorized to exercise your treaty right to voluntary withdrawal. Effective immediately, all personnel may terminate their contracts and return to Sol system. This is not mandatory, but it is recommended. Transport has been arranged. Departure window begins in 48 hours. Pack only what you need. Tell no one. Leave quietly. We are going home. Chen hit send. Across the galaxy, humans checked their personal devices. They read the message. Some smiled. Some looked sad. Some felt angry that it had come to this. But they all started packing. On Station Kep 7, engineer Maria Santos looked at the power system she'd maintained for 15 years. She thought about saying goodbye to her Zen-3 co-workers. Then she remembered that in 15 years, none of them had ever learned how to pronounce her name correctly. She packed her tools and left a note. Systems operational. Good luck, that was all. No struggle. No goodbye, just a quiet walk to the departure bay. The first ship left Station Kep 7 at 0600 station time. It was a human transport vessel, old and battered from years of cargo runs. Nobody paid attention. Human ships came and went all the time, moving supplies and equipment. By evening, 3 more ships had departed. Then 5 more. Then 12. Station Commander Thexali didn't notice. Why would he? Humans handled their own logistics. They always had. The same pattern repeated across the galaxy. On mining colonies, research stations, trade hubs, and industrial platforms, humans quietly boarded ships and left. They filed proper departure documents. They submitted their contract terminations through official channels. Everything was legal and correct. They just didn't tell anyone they were all leaving at once. Dr. James Park had worked at the Kelthran Medical Institute for 12 years. He was one of 40 human nurses and technicians at the facility, caring for patients from 15 different species. The Kelthran doctors were brilliant theorists, advancing medical science with every breakthrough. But they had little patience for the daily work of patient care. That's what humans were for. James packed his belongings in his small apartment near the hospital. His roommate, another human nurse named Lisa Chen, was doing the same. Should we tell Dr. Velmoth? Lisa asked. Velmoth was the head physician, one of the few Kelthran who actually spoke to the human staff. James considered it. Velmoth had always been polite. He'd even thanked James once for saving a patient's life when the doctor had prescribed the wrong medication. The message said, "Tell no one," James replied. "Besides, we submitted our resignations. That's all we're required to do. Doesn't feel right just leaving. Didn't feel right working for half the pay of Kelthran janitors either," James said quietly. "Didn't feel right when they blamed us for that patient death last year. even though we'd warned them about the equipment malfunction 3 times. Lisa nodded. She remembered. The council had investigated, found the humans blameless, and then done nothing to address the underlying problem. The equipment still malfunctioned. Humans just worked around it. They left their apartment keys on the counter and walked to the spaceport. On the mining colony Brestor 4, the Hepteron overseer finally noticed something wrong on day 3. The morning shift hadn't shown up. Neither had the afternoon shift. In fact, he couldn't find any humans anywhere. "Where are the extraction teams?" he demanded of his Hepteron assistant. "Unknown, overseer. Their quarters appear empty." "Empty? All of them?" "Yes, overseer. Records show they filed contract terminations 48 hours ago." "Contract terminations? Who authorized that?" "They authorized it themselves, overseer. The treaties grant them that right." The overseer felt the first stirring of concern. Humans ran the extraction equipment. Humans managed the refining process. Humans handled the transportation logistics. The Hepteron owned the colony and collected the profits, but humans did everything else. "Well, hire replacements," the overseer said. "From where, overseer?" That was a good question. The nearest recruitment center was 3 systems away, and it primarily served human workers. Because most species didn't want to work in mines. "Use Hepteron workers temporarily," the overseer decided. His assistant hesitated. "Overseer, no Hepteron has operated extraction equipment in, I believe it's been 70 years. How hard can it be? Humans did it." The assistant said nothing, but he was thinking that perhaps the humans had made it look easier than it was. On Station Kep 7, the problem started small. A waste recycler backed up on Deck 7. A minor issue normally fixed within an hour. But the usual repair team didn't respond. Because they were on a transport ship heading to Sol System. Engineering sent a Zen-3 technician to investigate. He stared at the recycler for 20 minutes trying to understand the repair logs. They were written in clear council standard language, but the technical details made no sense. The humans had used terminology he'd never seen before. They'd modified the system in ways not in the original design specs. He called his supervisor. "Sir, I need a human engineer to explain these modifications." "There are no human engineers on station right now." "What do you mean, no humans?" "There are always humans. They've all taken leave, some kind of mass vacation, all of them at once." Apparently, the Zen-3 technician looked at the broken recycler, then at the repair logs, then back at the recycler. "This is going to be a problem," he said. He was right. By the end of the week, 18 recyclers had failed across the station. Raw sewage backed up into 3 residential sections. The Zen-3 engineering team tried to fix them, but every system had been quietly modified by humans over the years. Nothing worked the way the original manuals said it should. At the council chambers, Councillor Vexithar reviewed routine reports. One caught his attention: a statistical anomaly in worker movements. A significant number of humans had departed council territories in the past week. He marked it for follow-up, but assigned it low priority. Humans moved around frequently. It was probably just a coincidence. Ambassador Chen sat in his office on Earth watching reports come in. 92% of humans had successfully left council territories. The remaining 8% were on ships heading home. In 2 weeks, the exodus would be complete. No one had stopped them. No one had even asked questions. The great species of the council were so accustomed to human workers coming and going that they never thought to wonder why they were all going in the same direction. Chen allowed himself a small smile. The plan was working perfectly. His assistant entered. "Sir, Earth Defense has confirmed the completion of the Sol perimeter. All defensive platforms are operational." "Good. What about the message?" "Prepared and ready to send on your authorization." "Not yet. Let them realize what they've lost first." 2 weeks after the first departures, the council began to understand they had a problem. Reports flooded in from across their territories. Stations reported maintenance backlogs. Hospitals struggled with reduced staff. Mining operations had slowed or stopped completely. Trade routes were disrupted because human logistics coordinators weren't there to manage the complex scheduling. The problems weren't catastrophic yet, but they were everywhere. Like 1,000 small cuts, each one minor but together creating a serious wound. Councillor Vexthar called an emergency session. The chamber filled with concerned representatives from dozens of worlds. "We need an explanation," Vexthar announced. Why have the humans abandoned their posts? Abandoned? Another counselor objected. They filed proper contract terminations. They followed all protocols. All of them at once? That's suspicious, perhaps, but legal. A Kelthran representative spoke up. My homeworld's medical facilities are operating at 60% capacity. We need human medical staff to return immediately. The Brester 4 mining colony has completely shut down, added a Heptaron delegate. The humans left and no one else knows how to run the equipment. Vexithar felt the first stirring of something he rarely experienced. Worry. Have we contacted Earth? What do the humans say? We've sent multiple messages to their embassy. No response. What about direct communication with Earth? We've tried. The Sol system has activated defensive perimeters. They're not hostile, but they're not answering either. The chamber filled with confused discussion. This wasn't normal. Humans didn't do this. They were reliable, predictable, compliant. Finally, a message came through from Sol system. Every delegate received it simultaneously. It was brief and formal, signed by Ambassador Chen. The United Government of Earth acknowledges receipt of your inquiries. Humanity is exercising its treaty right to voluntary withdrawal from Council territories. We thank you for the opportunity to serve and wish you well in your future endeavors. We will be in contact if we decide to resume our working relationship. That was all. No explanation. No demands. No negotiation, just a polite goodbye. Counselor Vexthar read the message 3 times. Something about it bothered him. The tone was wrong. It was too calm, too final. Get me a legal expert, he ordered. I want to know exactly what rights the humans have under the treaties. The answer came back within an hour. Every right they'd just exercised. Humanity had broken no laws, violated no agreements. They'd simply quit their jobs and gone home, all of them, at once. In the chamber, the greatest species in the galaxy looked at each other and began to realize they might have made a mistake. 1 month after the humans left, Station Kep 7 experienced its first major system failure. The main power distributor went offline without warning, plunging 3 decks into darkness. Emergency power activated, but it wasn't designed to run for more than a few hours. Chief Engineer Goxtal assembled his best Zen 3 technicians. Find the problem and fix it. They opened the power distributor casing and stared. Inside, they found a maze of modifications that weren't in any schematic. Wires rerouted in patterns that made no logical sense. Circuit boards that shouldn't exist. Software patches layered on top of patches on top of patches. One technician pulled up the maintenance logs. According to this, humans worked on this system 743 times in the past 5 years. What were they fixing? Everything. The original Zen 3 design had critical flaws. The system should have failed catastrophically years ago. The humans kept it running with continuous repairs and modifications. Goxtal felt his blood chill. How many other systems did they modify like this? The technician checked the database. His face went pale. All of them, sir. Every major system on this station has human modifications. Can we reverse the modifications and return to the original designs? The original designs don't work, sir. That's why the humans changed them. The power failed on 2 more decks before they managed a temporary fix. It wasn't elegant and it wouldn't last long, but it kept the lights on. For now. The Kelthran Medical Institute faced a different crisis. Without human nurses, the Kelthran doctors had to care for patients themselves. They discovered quickly that theoretical knowledge and practical skill were very different things. Dr. Velmoth stood in the intensive care unit, trying to operate a patient monitoring system. James Park had made it look simple. He'd walk in, glance at the readouts, and immediately know if something was wrong. He'd adjust medications, recalibrate equipment, and keep patients stable. Velmoth looked at the same readouts and saw meaningless numbers. The monitoring system showed data from 15 different instruments, each measuring a different biological function. James had somehow kept track of all of them simultaneously while caring for 6 patients at once. Doctor, the patient in Bay 4 is in distress, a junior Kelthran physician called out. Velmoth rushed over. The patient, a Draxian trader, was struggling to breathe. The oxygen regulator should have adjusted automatically, but it hadn't. Velmoth tried to manually override it, but the interface was designed for human hands. His 6 fingers couldn't reach the controls properly. By the time he figured it out, the patient had died. It was preventable. Simple. James would have fixed it in seconds. But James was gone. Velmoth stood over the body, feeling something he rarely experienced, inadequacy. He had 3 advanced degrees in xenobiology. He'd published 70 research papers. He was considered one of the finest medical minds in the sector, but he couldn't do what James Park had done every single day. The problems cascaded faster than anyone expected. The Jumpgate network, which connected the entire Council territory, began experiencing synchronization errors. Ships arrived hours late, or in 3 cases not at all. A Zen3 gate technician named Pexlor was assigned to investigate. He'd been told it was a simple calibration issue. Humans had handled it before. How hard could it be? Very hard, it turned out. The jump gates required constant micro-adjustments to account for gravitational fluctuations, stellar drift, and quantum variance. The calculations were enormously complex. The Council's top quantum mathematicians had designed the system, but they'd never actually operated it day to day. Humans had. For 80 years, Pexler found records showing that human gate operators made calibration adjustments every 6 hours. Every 6 hours. They developed a feel for the gates, understanding when something was off by fractions of a percent. They'd created shortcuts and workarounds that weren't in any manual. "This is impossible," Pexler reported to his supervisor. "The level of attention and intuition required is beyond our capabilities." How did humans do this? They were trained, presumably. Where? Show me the training program. There was no training program. Humans had taught each other, passing knowledge informally from experienced operators to new ones. They'd developed their own methodology over decades. It wasn't written down anywhere. It was just gone. The food distribution crisis hit 3 months after the Exodus. Council worlds had always relied on complex logistics networks to move food between agricultural colonies and population centers. Humans had managed these networks, coordinating thousands of shipments across hundreds of worlds. Without them, the system collapsed. Agricultural worlds harvested crops that had nowhere to go. Population centers ran short on food. Ships sat idle because no one knew how to optimize the routes. The computer systems could track inventory, but they couldn't adapt to unexpected problems the way human coordinators had. On the Heptaron homeworld, food riots broke out for the first time in 300 years. The government had to implement rationing. Citizens demanded to know why their advanced civilization couldn't feed itself. The answer was embarrassing, because they'd forgotten how. They'd let humans handle it, and humans made it look so easy that no one else bothered to learn. Counselor Vexthar read report after report, each one worse than the last. 15 member species economies were contracting. Medical emergencies were up 40%. 3 colonies had been evacuated due to life support failures. Trade was down by half. The council had convened emergency sessions every day for a month. They'd tried everything they could think of. They'd attempted to hire other species to do the work humans had done. But most species considered manual labor beneath them, and those willing to try simply couldn't match human capability. The work required flexibility, problem-solving, and endurance that other species lacked or refused to develop. They'd tried automation. The machines could handle simple, repetitive tasks, but they failed when things went wrong. They couldn't improvise or adapt. They couldn't look at a broken system and intuit a solution. They'd tried training programs for their own people. These failed spectacularly. Young Zenthri and Kelthrin, raised in cultures that valued theoretical knowledge over practical skills, couldn't adjust to hands-on work. Many quit after a few days. Those who persisted took months to learn what humans picked up in weeks. "Perhaps," suggested one counselor hesitantly, "we should simply ask the humans to return." "And show weakness?" Bexthar's 3 heads all sneered in unison. "We are the council. We don't beg. Then what do you suggest?" Bexthar had no answer. For the first time in his long political career, he had no answer. Ambassador Chen received daily reports about conditions in council space. Each one confirmed what he'd predicted. The council was learning an expensive lesson about the value of work they'd dismissed as simple. "Should we respond to their messages?" his assistant asked. The council had sent dozens of communications, starting with polite inquiries and progressing to increasingly desperate pleas. "Not yet," Chen said. "Let them feel the full weight of what they've lost. Some are suffering. Innocent people who had nothing to do with the council's decisions." Chen's expression softened. I know, but if we return too soon, nothing changes. They'll take us for granted again. The suffering now will prevent greater suffering later. He looked out at Earth, where returned humans were being integrated into massive new projects. Shipyards, research facilities, manufacturing complexes. Humanity had spent 80 years maintaining someone else's civilization. Now they were building their own. Besides, Chen added, we gave them 80 years. We can give them a few more months to think about it. In council space, species that had never worked together were forced to cooperate. A Drixari warrior found himself learning to repair waste recyclers alongside a Kelthran philosopher. Neither of them wanted to be there. Both of them were terrible at the job, but they learned something valuable: respect for those who'd done this work all along. The warrior, whose name was Crescenal, spent 6 hours trying to unclog a waste processor. His armor was smeared with filth. His dignity was in tatters. Finally, he got the system working again. His supervisor, a Zen 3 administrator, nodded approvingly. Good work. Now go to Deck 9, 7 more are backed up. Crescenal stared at him. 7 more, just me? We're short-staffed. The humans used to handle 20 or 30 in a shift. How many humans? Usually 3 per shift. Crescenal did the math. 3 humans doing the work that now required dozens of council species, all of them working slower and less effectively. For the first time, he understood what had been lost. 6 months after the humans left, the Brester 4 mining colony was officially abandoned. The Heptaron overseer stood in the control center one last time, looking at equipment worth billions that no one knew how to operate safely. 3 workers had died trying to restart the extraction systems. 17 more had been injured. He'd sent increasingly desperate messages to the Heptaron homeworld. Send experts, send money, send anyone who can help. The responses had been sympathetic but useless. There were no mining experts. That knowledge had belonged to humans. The overseer activated the final shutdown sequence and evacuated with the last transport. Behind him, billions in infrastructure and resources sat idle, useless without the workers who'd understood it. He wasn't alone. Across council space, 17 colonies had been abandoned. 43 stations operated at minimum capacity. Hundreds of facilities simply shut down because no one could maintain them. The death toll was rising. Dr. Velmoth compiled the statistics for the Council Medical Committee. In 6 months, preventable deaths were up 340% across council medical facilities. Not from new diseases or disasters. From simple mistakes that human nurses would have caught. A patient given the wrong medication. An infection not noticed in time. Equipment failing during surgery. Small errors, each one costing a life. Velmoth presented his report to the committee. The numbers spoke for themselves. He expected immediate action. Instead, he got bureaucracy. This is concerning, the committee chair said. We should form a task force to study the issue. Study it? Velmoth's voice rose. People are dying. We need human medical staff back now. That would require the council to negotiate. To admit we need them. We do need them. Look at the data. The data shows we're understaffed. It doesn't prove that humans specifically are necessary. Perhaps we simply need more training time. Velmoth stared at the committee members. He saw pride, stubbornness, and denial. He saw everything except what mattered. Urgency. He'd stayed silent for too long. They all had. They'd accepted human competence without appreciating it. They'd benefited from human labor without respecting it. I'm resigning from this committee, Velmoth said quietly. I can't watch more patients die while we debate pride versus practicality. He walked out. Behind him, the committee continued discussing training programs and long-term solutions. They still didn't understand that there was no long-term if they didn't survive the short-term. The economic collapse accelerated. The council's currency, backed by trade and resource extraction, began losing value. When mining colonies stopped producing, when manufacturing slowed, when trade routes became unreliable, confidence evaporated. Financial markets on the Kelthran homeworld crashed. Banks failed on 3 Zen 3 worlds. The Heptaron government imposed emergency economic controls to prevent total collapse. The prestigious council, feared and respected across the galaxy for millennia, was humiliated. Neighboring civilizations watched with interest. Some offered help. Others saw opportunity. The Vexor Dominion, a rival power beyond council space, sent a formal message. We understand you're experiencing labor difficulties. We'd be happy to assist by assuming administrative control of your outlying territories. It was a polite way of saying, we'll take your colonies while you're weak. The council rejected the offer, but fear spread. If they appeared too vulnerable, others might try to carve up their territory. The military, which had been one of the few sectors not heavily dependent on human labor, went on high alert. Commander Kreshnel, the Drixari warrior who'd spent months learning maintenance work, received orders to mobilize his unit. They were to defend the outer colonies against potential aggression. He assembled his troops and reviewed their readiness. Ships operational, but maintenance was overdue. Weapons functional, but the human technicians who usually kept them calibrated were gone. Supplies adequate, but the logistics networks were unreliable. We can conquer worlds, Kreshnel told his second-in-command. But if we take them, we can't keep them running. We just end up with more failed colonies. His second-in-command, a younger warrior, asked, Sir, why don't we just ask the humans to come back? Pride, Kreshnel said. The council's pride. Is pride worth dying for? Kreshnel had no answer. He'd been raised to value honor and strength. But he was learning that strength came in many forms. The humans had shown strength by walking away. The council was showing weakness by refusing to admit they'd been wrong. Deep in the council chambers, the debate raged. 3 factions had formed. The hardliners, led by Councillor Vexthar, refused to negotiate. We don't beg. We find alternative solutions. The pragmatists argued for immediate contact with Earth. People are dying. Economics are collapsing. We need to end this. The moderates suggested a middle path. We acknowledge the situation is difficult, but we negotiate from a position of strength, not desperation. The problem was they had no strength. Everyone knew it. A junior counselor, a Kelthran named Silith, spoke up. She'd been elected recently, representing a younger generation. Perhaps we should consider why the humans left. They left because they're ungrateful, Vexthar snapped. We gave them access to galactic civilization. No, Silith said firmly. We gave them jobs. Jobs we didn't want to do. Jobs we paid them poorly to do. Jobs we considered beneath us. They left because we never treated them as equals. They're not our equals. They have no special abilities. No advanced technology. They have something better. Competence. Adaptability. Work ethic. They could do things we couldn't or wouldn't do. That made them valuable. We just never valued them. The chamber fell silent. Silith's words hung in the air like an accusation. Because they were true, Ambassador Chen received a priority message from Earth's intelligence service. The report detailed conditions in council space. The deaths, the economic collapse, the abandoned colonies, the political division. They're suffering, his assistant said. Isn't that enough? Chen felt the weight of responsibility. He'd orchestrated this exodus. Every death, every failure, every crisis happened because humanity had withdrawn. But he also knew that returning too soon, accepting poor treatment again, would only perpetuate the cycle. Send a probe, Chen ordered. Let them know we're watching. Let them know we're willing to talk, but only on our terms. The probe launched from Earth, a small automated ship carrying a message. It traveled through council space, broadcasting on all frequencies. Humanity acknowledges the difficulties facing the Galactic Council. We are willing to discuss resuming our working relationship. However, any such discussion must be conducted between equals. We no longer accept the designation of service species or manual labor species. We are partners or we are nothing. If the Council wishes to speak, send diplomatic envoys to neutral space. We will listen. The message reached every Council world simultaneously. Reactions varied. Some felt relief. Others felt anger at the conditions. But everyone understood. The humans were willing to negotiate, but they wouldn't be pushed around anymore. Vexithar read the message in his quarters, away from the other counselors. His 3 heads all felt the same emotion, frustration. He'd spent his entire career maintaining council authority and prestige. Now a species he'd dismissed as simple workers was dictating terms. But he was also exhausted. 6 months of crisis management, endless meetings watching his civilization slowly crumble. He'd tried every alternative. None worked. His assistant entered. Sir, the latest casualty reports. How many? 473 preventable deaths this week. Across all territories, 473. Each one a person. Each one someone's family member. Each one dead because the council was too proud to admit a mistake. Vexthar's middle head looked at his assistant. Schedule an emergency council session. Full membership tomorrow. What's the agenda, sir? Vexthar took a breath. The words were hard to say, but necessary. We're going to vote on whether to accept humanity's terms. The assistant's eyes widened. Sir, the hardliners will... The hardliners can watch their worlds burn if they prefer. I'm done. We need the humans back, whatever it costs. For the first time in months, Vexthar felt something like hope. Maybe they could fix this. Maybe it wasn't too late, but first they had to do something the council had never done before. Admit they were wrong. The council chamber had never been so full. Every seat was occupied. Every member species had sent representatives. They'd all read the proposal. They all knew what they were voting on. Councillor Vexthar stood at the central podium. For once, all three of his heads spoke in perfect unison, giving weight to his words. We face a choice, he began. We can maintain our pride and watch our civilization decline, or we can adapt and survive. The humans have offered to negotiate. Their terms are clear: equal partnership, fair compensation, and respect. The question before us is simple: do we accept? The hardliner faction leader rose immediately. This is surrender. We are the council. We don't negotiate with workers. They're not workers, a voice called out. It was Silith, the young Kelthran counselor. They never were. They were partners we treated as servants. That's our mistake, not theirs. We gave them everything. We gave them nothing, Silith interrupted. They earned everything they got. They kept our stations running, our sick healthy, our colonies productive. We paid them poorly and thanked them never. They gave us 80 years of service and we gave them disrespect. Emotional rhetoric, the hardliner dismissed. We can solve these problems without what? Without humility? Without admitting we were wrong. Dr. Velmoth stood, his medical robe stained from another long shift. I've watched 473 beings die in the past week. Preventable deaths. Deaths that wouldn't have happened if human nurses were still here. How many more deaths is your pride worth? The chamber erupted in discussion. Councillors argued, debated, pleaded their cases. But beneath the noise, everyone felt the same pressure. Time was running out. Finally, Vexthar called for order. We vote now. The proposal is to authorize diplomatic negotiations with Earth under the terms they've specified. All in favor? The vote was close. Terrifyingly close, but it passed. By 7 votes, the Council agreed to negotiate with humanity as equals. The negotiations took place at Outpost Meridian, a neutral station on the border between Council and independent space. Ambassador Chen led the human delegation. He'd chosen his team carefully. Engineers, doctors, logistics coordinators, and workers from every sector. Not diplomats. Workers. The Council sent Councillor Vexthar along with representatives from the species most affected by the Exodus. They met in a conference room with a large circular table. No head position. No hierarchy. Equal seating. Chen sat down and placed a data tablet on the table. Before we begin, I want to be clear about something. We're not here to punish you. We're not here to humiliate you. We're here to establish a relationship based on mutual respect. Vexthar's 3 heads nodded. Understood. What are your terms? Chen activated the tablet. First, humanity receives a full voting seat on the Council. Not advisory. Not provisional. Full membership with all rights and responsibilities. Agreed, Vexthar said immediately. Several other councillors looked surprised at how quickly he'd conceded, but none objected. Second, all human workers receive fair market compensation. We've calculated what you pay specialists from other species for comparable work. We want the same rates. A Heptaron delegate spoke up. That will triple our labor costs. Yes, Chen said simply. You've been underpaying us for 80 years. Consider it a correction, the delegates whispered among themselves. Finally, they agreed. Third, formal protections for human workers across all Council territories. Safe working conditions, reasonable hours, proper equipment, and, this is important, respect from supervisors and colleagues. How do we enforce respect? A Kelthran delegate asked. Training, Chen replied. Mandatory cultural sensitivity training for any species working with humans. You'll learn about us, our capabilities, and why the work we do matters. We'll also establish an independent board to investigate complaints. Agreed, Vexthar said. Fourth, a mutual defense pact. If Council space is threatened, Earth will help defend it. If Earth is threatened, the Council will help defend us. True allies, not employer and employee. This caused more discussion. A defensive pact meant treating humanity as a major power, but they'd already shown they were. The Exodus had crippled the Council more effectively than any military attack. Agreed, Vexthar said finally. Chen leaned back. Then we have a deal. Human workers will begin returning within the month. We'll prioritize critical systems, life support, medical facilities, food distribution. Full staffing will take 6 months. Why so long? A delegate asked. Because we're not just sending workers back, Chen explained. We're sending teachers. Your people need to learn what we do. No more dependence on one species. You'll learn to maintain your own systems. Velmoth nodded approvingly. That's wise. We should have done that from the beginning. Yes, Chen agreed. You should have. The meeting concluded with formal signatures on the treaty. As delegates filed out, Vexthar approached Chen privately. I underestimated your species, he admitted. I thought you needed us more than we needed you. That was the problem, Chen said. We didn't need you. We chose to help you. There's a difference. I understand that now. Painfully. Chen's expression softened. We're not enemies, Vexthar. We never were. But we won't be invisible anymore. We won't be taken for granted. Remember that. Vexthar's 3 heads all nodded in unison. We will. I promise you that. 3 weeks later, the first human ships returned to Council space. Not the same workers who'd left. These were volunteers, specialists chosen for their expertise and teaching ability. Maria Santos returned to Station Kep 7, where she'd worked for 15 years. The Zen 3 engineering team greeted her with something they'd never shown before. Gratitude. We tried to do your job, Chief Engineer Goxtal admitted. We failed miserably. Will you teach us? Maria smiled. That's why I'm here. She spent the first week just assessing the damage. The Zen 3 had kept things running barely, but everything was held together with temporary fixes and desperate improvisation. She recognized the signs. They'd done what she used to do, keep systems alive through pure determination. You actually did pretty well, she told them. Given that you had no training and no experience, this is impressive. Goxtal looked surprised. Really? Really? Now let me show you how to do it properly. She began teaching not just how to fix things, but why they broke and how to prevent failures. The Zen 3 engineers learned eagerly. They'd spent 6 months struggling with systems they didn't understand. Now they could learn. Why didn't you teach us before? One engineer asked. You never asked, Maria said simply. You assumed it was simple work not worth your time. We did it, you collected paychecks, and nobody thought about it. We were fools. You were comfortable. Comfort makes people stupid. Pain makes them learn. James Park returned to the Kelthrin Medical Institute. Dr. Velmoth met him at the entrance personally. Thank you for coming back, Velmoth said. I owe you an apology. Many apologies. Tell me about the patients we lost, James said quietly. Velmoth did. Every name, every circumstance, every preventable death. It took an hour. James listened to all of it. When Velmoth finished, James was quiet for a moment. Those deaths are on the Council's pride, not on you. You tried. You couldn't do what you weren't trained for. Will you teach us? That's why I'm here. James spent his first day back doing ward rounds with Velmoth shadowing him. The doctor watched carefully as James checked patients, adjusted equipment, caught early warning signs of complications. How did you know that patients' oxygen levels were dropping? Velmoth asked after one round. The monitors didn't alert. Breathing pattern, James explained. See how his chest moves? That's labored breathing. The monitor hasn't caught it yet because it's checking blood oxygen, not respiratory effort. You've got about 10 minutes before it becomes critical. Velmoth adjusted the treatment immediately. Crisis averted. You see things we miss, Velmoth said with wonder. How? Experience. Pattern recognition. And we're taught to trust our observations over machines. Machines are tools, they help. But they don't replace judgment. I wish I'd learned that earlier. You're learning it now. That's what matters. Across Council space, similar scenes played out. Humans returned not as servants but as partners and teachers. Species that had dismissed them learned humility. Workers who'd been invisible became valued colleagues. The change wasn't perfect. Some council species still showed prejudice. Some humans remained bitter about the years of disrespect. But slowly, carefully, a new relationship formed. Commander Kreshnal met with human military advisors to discuss defensive strategies. He'd expected lectures about weapons and tactics. Instead, they talked about logistics. Wars aren't won by warriors, the human colonel explained. They're won by supply lines, maintenance crews, and medical teams. Everything you've been learning about keeping systems running? That's what wins wars. Kreshnal thought about this. You're saying the work I've been doing, the maintenance, the repairs, that's military training? The best kind. You've learned how civilization works from the ground up. Most warriors never understand that. It was a perspective Kreshnal had never considered. Strength wasn't just in fighting. It was in building, maintaining, and sustaining. 1 year after the Exodus, the Galactic Council held a ceremony. They were officially inducting Earth as a full member with voting rights.